But we left off last week with talking about the mansion of mirth and the how in this world, we always focus on the suffering. Life is suffering, and the whole approach of Buddhism that life is to find our way out of suffering. Um, and the Ramakrishna was having a conversation with some of the devotees, and M pipes up in the background and says, "Oh, this world, it's such suffering." And Ramakrishna looks at him with surprise. "What are you saying? This world can be a mansion of mirth," right? And so he just goes on and talks about it. And right here says, and M asks him, "But where is unbroken bliss in this world?" And Ramakrishna, he says, "Yes, where is it?" And I always like to think he had that little twinkle of wisdom in his eye when he says it, because M is asking the wrong question, right? He says, "Where is unbroken joy in this world?" There is no unbroken joy in this world. Where is the unbroken joy? It's in the shrine of your own heart. It's in the space that comes before thinking, when there's silence within, when there's no identity with mind or thought, no identity with body, but there's just that tranquility of being present in the moment, present in the divine, where we come to know what we are when nothing is telling us, where we're not being told by the body what we are and how we feel, and we're not being told by the mind who we are and what we feel, but in that silence of simple being, where there's no history and no future, there's only is. In that space is where we find this unbroken joy, this bliss, which is your nature. And it's hard to believe it's there. It is utterly. It's very difficult to believe it's there, because we're like, "Oh, I'm not experiencing that." Well, that's exactly it. You get to experience what you choose to experience. If you choose to experience mind with its layout of the universe, then that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to enjoy, and this or suffer. And this unbroken joy is a steady sound that mind pushes out. Right? We've talked about that in the past quite a bit. That this joy and wisdom that is you, that comes in the silence of being, when the mind is still, when the mind is not full of thought waves, then you can hear this bliss. Then you can hear this inner wisdom of knowing, right? But as soon as you're interested in the mind, that idea of me and mine stirs the mind and causes lots of thoughts to happen. And as long as you're looking at those thoughts, you won't be aware of the stillness that is now behind you, because you're looking in a different direction. So actually, active mind, which is activated by egoism, by a sense of separateness, a sense of independence from everything else, that causes the disturbance in the mind, and all of that ensuing thinking and planning and liking and disliking, all of that noise and cacophony, the world of change. And incidentally, the sand that the foolish man builds his house on in the parable of Jesus in the Bible, the rock that we build on should be in this temple of the shrine of the heart, where we live. And we can only find our way there when we're not being distracted by everything else. And when we're not being distracted, then our own inner bliss becomes obvious to us, and we find that which is the unbroken bliss, which is not of this world. This world is made from it, but this world, when it comes through the senses or through the mind, that bliss is broken into pieces, because there's only moments of silence, right after you fulfill a desire, right after you fulfill a desire, there's a wonderful bliss. We think it's because we fulfilled the desire. We blame the object of desire for that bliss. But what happens is, when you fulfill a desire for a brief time, you're without desire. And in that brief moment of being without desire, you become aware of a natural bliss within yourself. And so remember that. When you're happy to get something, realize it's not the happiness of the getting. It's having gotten it and being at peace for a moment, because no desire has moved in to distract you in mind, that you become aware, just slightly aware of your joy, of your bliss. But you look at the master, if you meditate deeply, if you can silence the mind, remove I and mine, from the world of thinking, that bliss can become so intense that it overpowers your awareness of anything else. It short circuits the mind into a state of samadhi, a state of ecstasy, that it's so loud and so powerful. And some of the great sages talk about that experience where the inner reality becomes more important, becomes more a part of your awareness and your experience than the world of the mind, right? And you begin to then at that point create your own atmosphere. The condition of your mind and the condition of your body is no longer what is determining the atmosphere of your life. It's this steady flow of bliss and this steady awareness of being, of God within, becomes your primary experience. And things on the outside, things for the body may not be in a good state, but they won't be able to penetrate directly to your awareness. They'll have to go through that atmosphere of the divine love that you're soaking in, that divine bliss. And so this is what the master is talking about. It says, where is this unbroken bliss in this world? Yes, where is it? Sri Ramakrishna stood in front of the shrine of Kali and prostrated himself before the Divine Mother. M followed him. Then the master sat on the lower floor in front of the shrine room, facing the blissful image, and leaned against a pillar of the Nat Mandir. He wore a red-bordered cloth, part of which was on his shoulder and back, and M sat by his side. M. Since there is no unbroken happiness in the world, why should one assume a body at all? I know that the body is meant only to reap the results of past action. But who knows what sort of action it is performing now? The unfortunate part is that we are being crushed. Master says something very interesting here, actually. He says, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. Right? What is he saying there? That's like, you may have chosen a body and you may have been put into the world where there's all of this throng of opposites out there, but you are the image of God, right? You are the image of the divine. You are a manifestation of the beloved. And so in this world of manure, as it were, this world of fertilizer, you're going to grow into a pea. You're going to grow into your nature. You're going to become a saint, regardless of where you've fallen, regardless of where you've been planted. That it is your nature to love, and so in time you will perfect that. It is your nature to be wise, and so in time you will return to that. Your mind in its perfect state and the will of God in its perfect, everlasting perfect state are the same. And so this surrender to the divine will is not a loss of your own will. It's a returning to your original will, to your pure will before it became diluted with being separate and apart from the whole, separate and apart from everything else. And at that point, we'll see that divinity in each other, and we'll respond to that first when we see each other. We won't respond to personalities. We won't respond to flaws or strengths, ages and genders. We'll respond to what we see first in ourselves. We'll respond to that divine nature. And when we begin to see that divine nature in others, that's when love really begins to be freed up inside of us. That's when we really can start to flow in a more equanimous way, that we don't give our love to this person more than that person based on conditions of mind or conditions of body. So this is why we meditate, to discover who we are, which happens to be a blissful love, a blissful wisdom, an unchanging experience of isness. And so by finding that, we become a blessing to the world. We become a strength to each other. And so this is what he's saying. If a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. Ham says, yeah, but there's still the 8 bonds, those 8 bonds. What are they? Shame, guilt. There's 8 of them anyway. Along those lines, he says, they're not 8 bonds, but 8 fetters. But what if they are? These fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. right? And we'll always be harping on the grace of God, actually, because it's the main key to being able to let go of your own karma. You see, it's very important to understand that God does not keep track of your karma. He's not the one up there keeping an abacus tally like Santa Claus. Oh, she's being naughty. Oh, he's being nice. Keeping a tally. How do we know that? Well, from the Christian scriptures, where I always go for that verse in Corinthians, that God is love, and one of the natures of love, according to Corinthians, is that it keeps no record of wrongs. Right. So our relationship with God is not through a calculated list of rights and wrongs. We carry our list of rights and wrongs in our own mind, and it's us who won't let ourselves pass without paying. Right. It's us that won't let ourselves forgive unless somebody is worth forgiving. It's us that won't take care of a business unless it hurts too much. We're the ones that keep track of our rights and wrongs, and we're the ones that force and hold ourselves to it. And so you can go through the process. It's a very long process, an arduous process of working out all of your karma. That's the path of karma yoga, where you can try and get that karma. You don't collect good karma and you don't avoid bad karma. You're trying to get your karma to the 0 point. So you can do it through that path. But Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna says, there's a much faster way. And that is to go to the divine through bhakti yoga, through the path of devotion, where the path and the goal are the same, divine love. And you use that notion, meditating on divine love. What is divine love? Love with no condition is divine love. And so by meditating on a love that has no condition, you become aware of grace. You grow in your understanding of grace, which is the action of divine love. And in that divine grace, that's where you find the ability to let go of your own story, let go of your egoism, which is one of the bundles that your egoism holds on to, is your karma, your list of rights and wrongs, the things that you've done, the things that you're guilty of, and the good things that you've done, and identifying yourself with them. So he says there's not the 8 bonds, but 8 fetters. But what if they are? That's not important. Yes, there are things holding us here, our bad habits, how many times we've done the wrong things in a row so that they've become deeply ingrained in our mind, how deeply identified we are with things that cause us, to feel all different sorts of things. Yes, all of that's there. But don't focus on that, because that's not the way out. If you focus on that, that's the way deeper into it. You'll just get more and more tied up. If you go looking in your mind for the answers to why, the mind will make them up if it doesn't have an answer. That's the nature of the mind. It'll make up things for you. And so he says, these fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. So grace of God is the thing. This wonderful love that is our nature. By sitting in that, there was that old commercial, Madge was always soaking her hand in palm olive dishwashing liquid. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I grew up with that. And she'd be soaking in this green little jar, soaking her hand. She's at the nail salon, soaking in her hand in palm olive dish liquid, as if. But anyway, she's doing that. And so Madge, she says, telling her all about the benefits of palm olive. And she says, oh, where is this palm olive? And the commercial always ended with the hairdresser or the nail salon woman saying, oh, you're soaking in it. And so this divine grace, as we're sitting here, all of that for this lousy point. But then in this world that we're in right now, you're soaking in it. Your freedom is not something that's in front of you that you can objectify. That's what makes it so tricky, right? When any other thing that we want to learn in the world, we put it in front of us, we objectify it, we study it with our senses, we put it in the mind, and then we tie strings of relativity from it and all the other objects of thought that we've placed in our mind. And so when we approach God, we want to do that same thing, because that's the only thing we know. We're like, oh, I don't know how to do anything else. But we got a very unique task here, in that we're trying to sit in a place and study ourself. And the self can't be objectified because it is the thing that's looking. It's the thing that is studying. And so we need a very different approach to this. And that approach is surrender. That approach is letting go of all of the other things that you identify with, because you are that which you are when nothing is developed, when nothing is identified with. What is left when you let go of all of the adjectives that you've been holding on to? And we know from our other class, Sri Nisargadatta that what you're left with is being, is presence, the I am. And in that silence of I am, when you place the awareness on awareness, that is how the sages came to find that the nature of this awareness, which is kind of illegal to talk about because it's beyond everything, but the last three things you'll say of your own being as you fall into it are, oh, what love, what wisdom, isness. And then boom, you're one without a second, and nothing else can be said beyond that. But this is our highest nature. So he says, the fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. Do you know what it is like? Suppose that a room has been kept dark for 1,000 years. The moment a man brings a light into it, the darkness vanishes, not little by little. Haven't you seen the magician's feat? He takes a string with many knots and ties one end to something, keeping the other one in his hand. Then he shakes the string once or twice, and immediately all the knots come undone. But another man cannot untie the knots, however he may try. All the knots of ignorance come undone in the twinkling of an eye through the Guru's grace, right? Through the Guru's grace. Because all of the knots, all of our karma is a delusion. Karma only belongs to mind, only belongs to body, and you are neither of those. You are the self, right? You are this Sat Chit Ananda, this beautiful bliss, this beautiful wisdom, this beautiful being, right? That there is in this moment, the moment is the I am, and in this moment, there is no story. Your history belongs to mind. If you can get yourself to let go of it, your problems go with it, because your problems are all formed out of memory, right? And future, which is also only a concept. You can't go to the future, you can't go to the past. You can talk about them only in the present. We have only ever known the present. We have only known God. This is all that there is. And the mind has created your past out of its attachments, the things that it didn't want to let just flow through the river of time, as it were. It grabs them and stores them in memory. It's you grabbing something temporary and wanting it to be eternal, wanting it to be like you. So you grab something out of the stream of time and you put it in your mind as a memory. And in that way, you take something that's temporal and you make it immortal for yourself. You place it in memory. You can call it up any time. So your past is all these collections of things that you grabbed out of the river of time to hold on to. And as all those things sit back there in your backpack, occasionally your mind wanders to them. Oh, what did I put in that backpack? And you sit there and you bring it up. And what happens then? That's where your future is formed. Because these objects that you now have in memory don't exist in the flow of time anymore. They exist only in your memory. And so they create a desire. They create a want, you know? You sit there, I use that story, the pizza story, right? You smell pizza, you want pizza. So now you have to come up with a future to come up with a way of getting pizza. Well, how's that plan to get pizza? So your past is your attachments, and your future is your desires. And most of us spend life bouncing back and forth over the point in the middle, which is really the only real thing. The moment, being, isness, God, right? And so your awareness of this moment is your awareness of God. And being present means having no egoism, no sense of me and mine, because ego is built on your past. Ego is built on memory. And so most of us are sitting on that last memory, the most recent memory, sitting on the edge of the past and staring at the present from that perspective. And so this is why all the sages say, be present, be here now, which really means stop sitting on that most recent memory, staring at the present moment, and step into the present moment where there is no memory, no projection of future, There's only full awareness of isness itself. And in that moment, Eckhart Tolle says you become aware of an infinity of knowledge that is not referential, that you don't have to ask for, because that is part of the wisdom that you are. You become aware of this vast love, this unconditioned infinity of bliss, in this moment. But if you're standing on the past, or if you're living in the future, if you live in the past, you're full of resentments. If you live in the future, you're full of anxieties. It's only in the present that we find peace. It's only in the divine, in God, as it were. So he's saying, but understand that all of this story that you think you are, that has defined troubles for you and defined anxieties and defined likes and dislikes, he says, understand, it's like the magician's rope. It can be taken care of. And I wish I had it here. I did a lecture on this one time, and I did that trick. I actually learned it out of a book on magic when I was in like 13 or something. And what you do is you take a string and you tie it into a pretzel, right? And you tie one piece around itself over here. You loop the other one through that loop and tie it over here so that your string looks like a pretzel. And then you tell everybody in the audience you're going to cut the string into 3 pieces, and you cut just before the knot on the string. You cut right there, and then you cut the other one, and the string falls down into a straight string, but it's got 2 knots that appear that the string has three segments. But if you remember, those 2 knots are just the string tied around itself that you just cut off from the 2 tips of the string. And so what you do is you shake the string twice, and on the second one, you pull it through your hand and slide those knot pieces off, and the string comes back to wholeness. It comes back to a single one. And so here is Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna, giving away the secret of this magic trick for us. So it's just that. He says, so if you know that it's unreal, right, through your practice of meditation, through your stilling of the mind, once you know that this ego self is unreal, that the past is unreal, the future is unreal, all that is real is what is, he says, you shake the string once or twice and immediately all the knots come undone. But another man who believes it to be real, the rest of the people in the audience, they can't get those knots undone no matter how they try. All the knots of ignorance come undone in the twinkling of an eye through the Guru's grace, through this meditation on pure love, through this acceptance of grace, right? It's an infinite grace. I get to give you all of my stereotypical statements tonight. That this grace is infinite, but to accept infinite grace requires infinite humility, right? I used to have a friend, Ken. I won't say his last name, but he was a very rich man, and I was in college. I was a very poor man. Well, I'm a poor man now, but nonetheless, I was very poor in college too. And Ken, every time we would go out, would always pay for everything. And he had no problem with that because he knew that I had no money. But I couldn't bear that. After a while, I just was such a burden on me to always having to be paid for, and it ended up really kind of breaking the relationship, breaking the friendship like that. And so in our relationship with the divine, we have to come to that place and accept that place, that we cannot free ourselves, that we can't completely capitulate our ego. We can't completely capitulate everything but the moment, and to be centered and stationary in that moment. Ramakrishna says only the very highest of sages have ever been able to do that. But it's not a big deal, because for us there's grace. There is the incarnation. If you're practicing the path of devotion, God incarnates and has been incarnating through the ages. And the incarnation that calls us, we go to, and through that incarnation, through that manifestation of God, through that hole in reality through which God can be seen, we come to know of this love, and through that relationship we accept this grace. And through that relationship, through that acceptance of grace, we find our humility, which is the breaking of the ego. And in the end, we let go and we say, not I, but thou, right? It's like, I accept that there is nothing I can do. I humble myself to that extent, right? And all of this has to happen at a very authentic and a very sincere space. It can't be the top 3 inches of mind that we normally live in, where we're not aware of anything else in there. This is something that this is an understanding that develops deep in meditation, where you can really are aware of what you're laying down, and where you just surrender, open the heart, and come to what I call mature prayer, where you and the divine are no longer talking to each other as such. There's no need. There's pure communion. There's pure intermingling between you and the divine, in a oneness. You're still a little bit of separation there. You're still the one enjoying God. But in that mature prayer is where we touch this deepest love, and where we find this deepest grace, and where we finally are able, in our exhaustion, to set it all down, and in that embrace be taken up. And I always like to picture me and the divine waltzing through the universe. Anyway. So all the knots of ignorance come undone in the twinkling of an eye through the Guru's grace. Right? It all happens at once. That's why, and again, we'll bring out that point from Suzuki in his Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, to remind us that this is how we practice. We don't practice to achieve enlightenment, because enlightenment is not achievable. We practice to know that we are enlightened, that within us, the heart, the shrine in the heart, our everything that we'll experience in realization is because we have moved our sense of I out of the mind, out of the world of change defined by time, space, causation. Let go of our memories, let go of our worries about the future. We've moved our sense of being out of the changing mind and have placed it in the silence of the shrine, where our realization is and has always been. That state of knowing is there always and has always been. So when we realize God, nothing has been achieved. We simply become aware of what has always been, when we're undistracted by all the things that are not, right? All of our memories, all of our likes and dislikes, all of our desires, all of our plans for the future, all of our relationships, that we've identified through body. We become then aware of an eternal peace, an eternal love, and an eternal wisdom that is non-referential, non-relational, that belongs to one without a second. And that's home. That's what we all are aware of, but are not sure how to find. Right? And that's, gosh, I'll just keep linking all my stories together here if I keep going. All right. So he continues on. He says, well, can you tell me why Keshav Sen has changed so much lately? Now, Keshav was a good friend of Ramakrishna's, who was starting that Hindu Reformation movement, which was making Hinduism look a little bit more like Christianity. They denied the idea of God with form. There were no idol worships. They would lecture and sing, very much like going to church on Sundays. So, and Keshav was running this organization. And so Ramakrishna says, can you tell me why Keshav Sen has changed so much lately? He used to come here very often. He learned here how to bow low before a holy man. One day I told him that one should not salute a holy man as he had been doing. Harish says rightly, all the checks must be approved here. Only then will they be cashed in the bank. And listened with these words breathlessly. He began to realize that Satchitananda, that love, wisdom, and being, in the form of guru, passes the check, right? So it's your teacher who's outside of your ego. This is why why a guru is necessary. A guru is both necessary and not necessary. If we had not gotten ourselves into such a knot of listening to our own mind based on our own likes and dislikes and our own worldview swallowed by the senses, if we had not done that, we would not need a guru, because that inner wisdom the guru is within, right? The guru is within ourselves. But all of us want to jump directly to that without properly understanding that we've gotten ourselves into a condition, we obey our ego now. The body says eat, you eat. The body says you don't like that person, you don't, or the mind says you don't like that person, you don't like that person. The mind says you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad mood. So if you in that state make yourself the guru, you've put your ego in charge of your spiritual life. Ego's not going to take you anywhere that the spirit wants to go. Mostly because the spirit doesn't want to go anywhere. But so that's why the guru is necessary in the beginning. And it really doesn't matter. The secret is, it really doesn't matter who that guru is. It's your attitude toward that guru that will break your ego, right? So the scriptures say, see God, see your guru as God, which means really devote yourself to everything that guru teaches you and tells you. Not because that may be right or wrong, but because it will break your ego to obey somebody outside of your ego structure. And that's really the biggest value of a guru, is it will keep you on a pure line, because it will help you to dismantle your ego. And then, of course, the scriptures say, if your guru, and Ramakrishna says, obey your guru even if he hangs out at the bar, even if he goes to the tavern, and drinks his grog. Respect your guru as God. And when the time is appropriate, the Divine Mother will bring you a better guru, will bring you a right guru for that moment to keep continually taking you forward. But you see how the whole structure is basically to keep your directions outside of the purveyance of your own ego, right? And so that's very important in spiritual life. That's why we rely on scripture. That's why we rely on a teacher. And that's why we rely on experience also. Experience is there also. In order to go forward. The master, do not reason. Who can ever know God? I have heard of it from Nangta once for all, that this whole universe is only a fragment of Brahman. Hazra is given too much to calculation. He says this much of God has become the universe and this much is the balance. My head aches at his calculations. I know that I know nothing. Sometimes I think of God as good and sometimes as bad. What can I know of him? Right? So what Ramakrishna is telling him is a big secret. God is not up here. Religion is not up here. Truth isn't up here. It's not a matter of collecting philosophies, dogmas, and doctrines and obeying them. That's not the path. Ramakrishna is saying, if you could, you would have your enlightenment this moment if you could let go of all of that immediately, just completely detach your sense of being from anything in the form of a thought, which means everything, because we actually have never experienced anything but a thought. And so that's what Ramakrishna is saying to him. He's saying, don't think that religion is about learning Sanskrit and chanting Sanskrit things and knowing the ins and outs of Shankaracharya's ways versus Ramanuja's ways versus whatever. It's not about that it's about letting go of all of that, letting go of everything. So don't think that it happens up here. We use this to get there, there's no doubt. We definitely use the mind to get there. That's what Ramakrishna's parable, he says, when you get a thorn in your hand, you pick another thorn and get that thorn out. But once you've got that thorn out, you throw both thorns away, right? The mind, the body has served its purpose. Its purpose was to bring you to the truth, the knowledge of self, the knowledge of love and wisdom. And once that's done, the body and mind are no longer necessary unless you just want to play, which is what a bodhisattva is, someone who has seen the truth and wants to come and play in this world, come and play, release people from their prisons, release others from their delusions, which is only necessary when you're in the play, when you're in the dream. And so some of us will do that and some of us won't. When our realization happens, some of us will be like, finally, we're at the party, we're not leaving, that's it. This is home for me. And some of us will be like, gosh, I sure would like Sam to come here. So we'll go back and get Sam and bring Sam along. So here, even Ramakrishna, an enlightened soul, purported by many to be an incarnation of God, is saying that I know nothing. Sometimes I think of God as good, and sometimes I think he's bad. What can I know of him? Right? Because God is not limited by anything. So he can't be placed into a thought. Uh, he can't be trapped by an idea. He's transcendent to thinking because he's transcendent to all the things that are necessary for thinking, right? To have a thought, you need three pieces. You need a subject, an object, and a relationship between them. If you don't have that triad, the mind cannot hold it. And so when we come and say God is one without a second, we mean that triad is collapsed into a singularity. Your mind is not going to be able to grasp that. And that's why everything is always just a pointer. The scriptures are only pointing at God. This world, everything in it, when you see it properly, is pointing at God. Every desire of yours is pointing at God. It's not pointing at the objects that you're associating with those desires, because all those desires are your infinite, one without a second nature, looking through the senses and trying to find itself. Right? So it desires things that remind itself of its real nature. So, it looks for unity through sex. It looks for bliss through pleasure. It looks for wisdom through experience. In all those things. And so your task for discerning when you're in this world, look straight at your desires, grab them and hold them in your mind and look at them until you see what element of the divine self is being reflected, is sparkling in this object that I think that I want this object. And then you're able to abstract that out and realize what your attraction is for that object. And you come to realize in the end that all of your desire was for that one, was for that divine, for God, right? So I think of God as good and sometimes as bad. What can I know of him? M. It's true, sir. Can anyone ever know God? Each thinks with his little bit of intelligence that he has understood all of God, right? That's why we all argue, why we all belong to our different paths, and we all think it's the right path, and we'll fight tooth and nail to prove that it's the right path, right? But in the end, what can we know? Each of us thinks with our limited little bit that we've got the whole story. As you say, an ant went to a sugar hill and finding one grain of sugar filled its stomach, thought that the next time it would take the entire hill back into its home, right? So we have one little blissful experience and we march ourselves around the temple thinking, we're the next Jesus. We have we catch one little path, Vedanta really taught me some stuff I really liked. Vedanta is the way, man. We're the best way. This is the broadest way. It's the great way, right? And then a Christian experiences some love in Jesus, and this is the right way. This is the one way. And then the Buddhist got his story, and then the atheist has his story, and all of us running around, all of us with one grain of sugar, all of us having touched a very little bit, running around and declaring, we've got the best. Why? Well, it's because of egoism. It's because we're identified by ego. And that's how ego is. Ego is always looking for anything that will prove its existence. Why? Because it doesn't exist. Ego is a figment of wrong thinking. And so being ego identified is eternally insecure, which is why you always find yourself so off center or knocked off your center. Somebody says something mean about your hair. You find out somebody's been talking about you at work. You find out that someone framed you for a bad deed at school, whatever it is. And suddenly you're just knocked off center. You're just consumed. Right? That's how you know you're ego defined. When things are always up and down and left and right and no conditions, you're living in that world built on sand. You're trying to find conditions that constantly change. In those constantly changing conditions, you're trying to find some stability. There's no stability in mind. There's no stability in egoism. You're tossed everywhere always because you're building on sand. That's the foolish man building on the sand. So that's why we are looking for where we really are. What is the source of this self? What is the source of this thinking? What is the source of this wondering? Who's asking this question? Who's listening to my ears? Who's looking out of my eyes? Who's talking through this mouth? This is what we're trying to find. And that self doesn't mean it appears when we find it. It's always been there. It is in there right now, right? Master, who can ever know God? I don't even try. Well, look at this. This is Sri Ramakrishna saying he doesn't even try to know God. What a crazy thing. All of us would think that that's all he knows, right? I don't even try. I only call on him as mother. Let mother do whatever she likes, right? That's that practice of non-resistance. See God everywhere present, and you will see everything always perfect, right? Not perfect for the body, because the body can't have anything perfect at any given time. Not perfect for the mind, because the mind's always changing, but perfect to the self, to the soul, right? Who can ever know God? I don't even try. I only call on him as mother. Let mother do whatever she likes. I shall know her if it is her will, but I shall be happy to remain ignorant if she wills otherwise. My nature is that of a kitten. It only cries mew, mew. The rest it leaves to its mother. The mother cat puts the kitten sometimes in the kitchen and sometimes on the master's bed. The young child wants only his mother. He doesn't know how wealthy his mother is. He doesn't even want to know. He knows only, I have a mother. Why should I worry? Even the child of the maidservant knows that he has a mother. If he quarrels with the son of the master, he says, I will tell my mother, I have a mother. My attitude, too, is that I have a mother, that I have a child, that I am that attitude of a child. So this, through devotion, this is one of the relationships that we have with the divine, is a child toward its mother. It can also be a child toward its father. It can be a husband toward his wife. It can be a wife toward her lover. All of these options are there for us. It's how you see God, how you see the divine within your own self. The closest approximation to the meaning of God that we can come up with is our highest approximation of love, right? You see sometimes in these near-death experiences that people always see someone waiting at the end of the tunnel. Some people see Jesus, some people see the white light, some people saw their grandmother, some people see their husband and their wife or their long-distant relative. And the theory that I've thought about that myself is that whatever your highest ideal of love, whoever you saw the purest form of love in, that person will wait for you at the end of that tunnel, because God will communicate to you through your own highest understanding of love, right? And that's how you will see the beloved, see the divine. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna caught M's attention and said, touching his own chest, well, there must be something here. Isn't that so? Right? Just that notion. There's got to be a reality somewhere. I think the reason he's touching his chest is because that's where your realization is, in the shrine of the heart, outside of mind, beyond time, beyond space. M looked wonderingly at the master. He said to himself, does the mother herself dwell in the master's heart? Right? So he's stumbling on a truth here, but in a real way, not in a philosophical way. He's actually understanding something very important. Does the mother herself dwell in the master's heart? Is it the divine mother who has assumed this human body for the welfare of humanity? Right? And in that sense, I mean, yes, in Ramakrishna's way or in the way of a Jesus or a Buddha, yes, that's the most powerful direct manifestation of God. But you also are a manifestation of God. It's just a difference in power, right? There's that story of you can make a clay mouse and you can make a clay elephant. Are they the same? Well, in essence, yes. But the elephant's much bigger, much more powerful, and your little mouse thing that you made is much smaller, much more delicate. And so it's like that. All of us are manifestations of God. All of us are incarnations of God, as it were, but it's a matter of varying levels of power. For a Jesus, huge amounts of power. So not only does he not have to undo his own knots because he's born free, right? But he then has that power of grace. He has the grace in his own hands to give, right? He himself not being in need of it as such. And so that's how it gets dispensed through a perfect light. Through that perfect life, our knowledge of love gets expanded. And ultimately, in a healthy relationship with the divine, our chosen ideal, our Ishta, our incarnation that we're following, becomes our highest concept of love, our highest concept of wisdom. And so through that, our mind, our own understanding is expanded, right? And all of the incarnations tell us what? That we are one with them, that there is no difference. And they offer the grace for that realization. Sri Ramakrishna was praying to the Divine Mother, O Mother, O embodiment of Om. Mother, how many things people say about you, but I don't understand any of them. I don't know anything, Mother. I have taken refuge at your feet. I have sought protection in you, O Mother. I pray only that I may have pure love for your lotus feet, love that seeks no return. And Mother, do not delude me with this world-bewitching Maya. I seek your protection. I have taken refuge in you. This is the essence of the path of devotion given to us by God. It's through that absolute surrender to the love of Mother and that faith that God will not allow us to be deluded, will not allow us to be ignorant and lost. But even if he does, we'll know that the only motive is love, and we resign. We resign to that. But we carry on with the constant awareness of this beloved, this divine love within. And we live in the middle of that. We are inundated by that, so that we become that. We start to act from that place, because that place is the only authentic and real place within us. That's why we love to love. We love to be loved. That's why we love to learn. We love to do better. We love to improve. We love to grow. These are the actions of Satchitananda. And all of this is done through the vehicle of being. Right? So it's a wonderful paragraph there. I'm just going to read it again, because this is an ideal relationship with God for the person practicing bhakti yoga, practicing the path of devotion. Sri Ramakrishna was praying to the Divine Mother, O Mother, O embodiment of Om. Mother, how many things people say about you, but I don't understand any of them. I don't know anything, Mother. I have taken refuge at your feet. I have sought protection in you, Mother. I pray only that I might have pure love for your lotus feet, love that seeks no return. And Mother, please do not delude me with your world-bewitching Maya. I seek your protection. I have taken refuge in you. All of that, if you were to analyze that, which is not what bhaktis are interested in, but if you did want to go through and analyze that, you would find how all of that is a dismantling of ego self, a dismantling of the idea of separation from the divine. And all of that is done through surrender in this way. And then if you take those key points and you go to any of the other three paths, you're going to find that the scaffolding of each of those paths is intended to do the exact same thing. And so that's how we know that all paths lead to God. The evening worship in the temples was over. Sri Ramakrishna was again seated in his room with M. M had been visiting the master for the past 2 years and had received his grace and blessings. He had been told that God was both with form and without form, that he assumed forms for the sake of his devotees. To the worshiper of the formless God, the master said, hold to your conviction, but remember that all is possible with God. He has form, and again, he is formless. He can be many things more. The master to M, You have accepted an ideal, that God without form. Isn't that so? M, yes, sir. But I also believe what you say, that all is possible with God. It is quite possible for God to have forms. Master, good. Remember further that as consciousness, he pervades the entire universe, the living and the non-living. So he's taking him to the next level. He's saying, okay, you now know that God can be with form or God can be without form. He can be either, and he can be much more than either of those things that you can't even conceive of. And so he says, yeah, but you have the ideal of God without form. And M says, yes. He says, that's good. Hang on to that. You don't have to change that. But now take it farther. Take it farther and know that God is consciousness, as consciousness, that he pervades the entire universe, living and non-living. And for the bhakti, for someone practicing, divine love, that puts you in relationship with everything as your divine beloved. That's how you learn to love others despite their shortcomings, despite their faults. That's how you learn to love the evil and the good. Right? That's how you
Swami,
diminish.
can I ask a question?
Please.
I have a really hard time with the word consciousness, and I know it's a really important word, but my brain has no idea what consciousness is.
All right. Consciousness is a step down, one step from pure awareness. Pure awareness is just pure openness, pure awareness, pure openness. Consciousness is pure awareness with objects in it. Okay? So for consciousness is what happens when you take awareness and assign it to a particular. Right? This body, I'm conscious as a human being because I've taken this awareness, which has no particular, which is always universal, infinite, and I have owned it with a body mind. And so now I am conscious of other. So pure awareness is God. Awareness with object in it is consciousness. All right. So you have to have a sense of separation because consciousness requires that which is conscious and that which is what that person is conscious of. Right. That it's that separation. So the birth of the ego gives birth to consciousness as such. You no longer see yourself as the universal. It's like in the dream, right? In the dream, you have to believe that you are a particular person in that dream. But in fact, that's not true. In fact, you are the whole dream. You are the dreamer. You're not the dreamed, right? So as the dreamer, you are aware of everything at once, that the whole dream is within you, that you are not within the dream. That's awareness. But when you come into the dream and you take a particular, then you are conscious because now you are in the full awareness, but you have taken only one particular perspective and owned it. And now you look at all of the other perspectives as being separate from yourself. You have entered into the dream. The dream is no longer in you. You are now in the dream. And so the sages say that this world's very much that same way. That when Vivekananda said, I am not in Alameda, which is that city in the Bay Area, he said, Alameda is in me. So it's that knowing, I am not in this dream. This dream is within me. So when we come to our full knowledge, our awareness, where we let go of the particular, where we understand that we are the dreamer, that we're not this dreamed particular, then we become aware. Until then, we're conscious. Does that help?
For trying.
Yeah. Don't think that it's going to be something that you'll actually understand, because we always, like I said, we need the three pieces. We need duality in order to think, and so awareness is outside of duality, so it's not going to be something easily grasped. Let's just say it's not going to be grasped. So it's always going to be a pointer idea. It's pointing at something that we can't understand because the mind can't hold it. But this idea of consciousness That's just us being aware in this world of objects. We don't see ourselves as one without a second. So we see ourselves with one with many seconds, with a multiplicity of others. And so in that world, we are conscious of all the other things. But when we are outside the dream, there are no things to be conscious of, but we will still be conscious. But that consciousness with nothing to be conscious of is awareness, pure awareness. That is God, one without a second. All right. Okay, well, that is 8 o'clock.